Hello, and thanks for watching this back. This is part of our Coffee and Culture series, and this session is all about how to make investing in culture feel like a no brainer. I'm Sarah McClellan. I'm the author and founder of Make It Human, a company focused on enabling leaders to shape growth cultures. So let's get into it. I think this is such an important topic because it can relate to all sorts of people initiatives, whether it's getting support for a team day, some development programs, or coaching for your managers, perhaps, or maybe it's a full culture transformation that you need to get stakeholder buy in and win some investment and support to make it a reality. It's also the point at which these initiatives start and unfortunately end. So there is a real skill gap that we need to develop and build to help more people get their culture initiatives off the line. So that's really what this session is all about. And I think this is a really common scenario. We have no problem in identifying that there's something that we want to fix in relation to culture, whether it's dipping engagement, maybe there's some issues around collaboration or productivity, or maybe you're noticing that people are burning out. It's really hard right now to find ways to sustain people and business results in today's very complex and ambiguous working environment. So, very often, we as individuals or leaders will say culture is a top priority for us to improve. It appears right up there on our lists of things that we want to get done. However, what happens beneath the surface is that we often fail to make any real progress. We get stuck in this cycle of inertia. And that typically looks like gathering more data, lifting the lid, trying to see what's really going on, and then deciding actually this looks quite complex. It involves lots of people related things. It feels quite intermingled. I'm not sure how to start, where to start, and therefore we put it down because it feels too hard. And we conclude that there are other priorities, other ways that we can more quickly perhaps drive impact and results for our business. That's the first big mistake that we make, because meanwhile, back on the surface, things go from bad to worse, and then it gets even harder to untangle and improve our cultures. So, in this session, we're going to really unpick that and talk about three practical steps that you can take in order to make investing in culture and acting on culture feel like a no brainer. So, we're going to talk through calculating the cost of doing nothing, the cost of inertia, how you can make it matter to your business. So, using a proven model and practical ways to make it feel meaningful. And finally, how you can get buy in fast by demonstrating early impact in a small but mighty part of your organization. So, let's dive in. And the first thing is that we are really lucky, I suppose, to have a lot of data, a lot of insight that shows us tangibly the cost of doing nothing. And really, it's this cycle, and I'm sure you'll be familiar with it. But what we've got to do is surface some of those hidden costs and make them more tangible, make them visible. So we know through research that a poor culture leads to around 20% of people leaving. And then, of course, you have a cost to replace them, which is typically around twice their salary. So you can very quickly quantify what is the cost of doing nothing when we know that there are things that we need to improve in our organizational culture. It then, of course, becomes harder to attract talented people. People talk about poor cultures, the experiences that they've had. Of course, they appear on Glassdoor, and it means that you're not attracting the people that you want and need through the doors. Disengagement increases. There's research that shows that productivity drops when disengagement grows, and it costs businesses up to 18% of our salary per annum. So every year, 18% of the cost of your overall salaries can be lost when disengagement increases. Of course, then that means people don't work as hard. They do their hours. They quiet quit, that phrase that we learned a few years ago. And then issues can run deeper. We can run into health issues. People who don't feel that they're being treated fairly are 35 to 55% more likely to suffer from major diseases, major health issues. And of course, that leads to absence. It leads to not getting the best out of our people. So the big message here is that inertia quickly spirals, but you can make that much more tangible through calculating some of these simple costs of doing nothing and building them into your case. But of course, that's only one side of the equation. The other part is what you lose in terms of business value. And this is again where we have such a wealth of research that shows us when we create cultures that are strong, healthy, inclusive, we are creating happy, valued, committed, and growing people. And that turns the wheels in this flywheel. And actually, the World Economic Forum, sorry, termed the phrase workforce sustainability, because these cogs start to turn. Engaged, productive, inclusive, collaborative, innovative teams. Of course, they lead to profitable, growing, durable, impactful, and successful businesses. That's the flywheel that we need to turn. And you can pick really any metric, pick something that's important to your business, and talk about the business value that you get through creating workplaces, cultures specifically, where people feel included, they feel valued, they feel able to grow. And you can pick any of these. There's a lot of stats there on this slide. So you've got to calculate the cost, but also calculate the loss in potential business value. You can see then how your business case for culture starts to form and starts to become more tangible. The second part that I've found really valuable over the years is that we've got to make it matter to your business. There's no point in just throwing around these stats. You've got to make them relevant and meaningful to your stakeholders and to the business in terms of what's important right now. And this is a model that I really like. I've used it quite a few times when I was leading a consulting team. We often did training around this, because it really helps link what's important to the business in terms of outcomes, in terms of metrics, and how does that relate to people initiatives. So it kind of helps bridge the two. And this is called, it's not my model, it's out there, it's called corporate drivers of corporate performance. And there are 4 areas. And I think it's good to say that your business may have 1 or 2 of these at any one time, but also, whilst it doesn't change very frequently, they can change. And particularly in today's environment, it's a good idea to check in on this and really check that you've understood what are the key business drivers right now. So, as I said, there's 4 of them, and let me just walk through those in a little bit more detail. So, if you're in a business that's really focused on cash, this is important when the business needs cash to run the core elements of their business. So they might have some fixed assets that they need to service, that they need to renew, around buildings, around IP, equipment, or insurance to operate in the industry that they're in. So cash flow into the business becomes a really key metric and a key business driver to tap into. Some examples of organizations where this might be important are places like Morgan Stanley, big insurance and payments that they need to make in order to operate in that industry, and having cash to lend. Pfizer, Microsoft, BP are just a few where I think this is going to be important. The second area is assets. So this is when assets in an organization are used predominantly to generate profit. So where, as opposed to kind of being able to run the business, this is the assets are used to generate profit. So they are often dependent upon equipment. So in oil and gas, in mining, in logistics, there might be warehouses that they need to maintain. This is where the revenue, where the profit gets generated. Organizations like big hotel chains where you've got to manage and use those buildings to generate profit for your business. Airlines, obviously, big overlays in terms of those types of businesses. There's been a bit of change, I think, in some of these businesses recently. So companies like Airbnb appearing where, and Uber, where they're saying, actually, there is a different model here. We don't necessarily have to own the assets directly, and that changes then the business driver for those organizations. So yeah, have a think and see, is assets something that's important? Is that a key driver in our business? The third one then is about profit. And this is really when a business is focused on increasing sales, reducing cost in order to drive higher levels of profit. And it becomes particularly relevant when the margin that you're operating in is very low. So, for example, in retail, in hospitality, in engineering, and in construction. And you might often hear terms like gross profit, operating profit, margin, EBITDA being talked about. So they're things to really think about. And that might signal that linking it to sales, linking it to controlling cost, linking it to driving better margins for your business are nice ways to link and achieve buy-in for what it is that you're trying to do. The fourth area is growth. And this is when you see businesses really focused on delivering an increase in sales or revenue over a period of time. So you might hear terms like CAGR, compound annual growth rate. So looking at how is our growth improving over time. Annual revenue, recurring revenue, ARR. Again, quite often these are subscription based businesses. So it might be technology, SaaS, health tech. They're really growing in popularity, obviously, because we're becoming so digitized. But growth, sales, ARR would be good things to talk about if that's important to your business. So a way that you can do this is just by looking at what metrics are being talked about. Have a look at things like company statements, the words being used by your CEO, key leaders, shareholders, what's important. And you can zoom in and work out, okay, that's what I need to anchor my case towards. And here's just a really quick example. I like how Spotify and others have done this in that they're saying they're linking a business driver to some tangible culture change. So here is an example of a meeting invite that pops up and it automatically calculates the cost of that meeting based on who's attending, the time, and it shows you actually the cost over a certain period of time. So that's quite nice because it's a nice trigger. It's sort of saying, do you really need? Is this good use of time? It also shows how it's going to impact the business, and it might change some of those habits that are making up our culture. So there's ways I think we can link our business drivers also to some of the habits that enable us to change and improve our cultures. So that's number 2, making it matter to your business. Number 3 then is all about demonstrating that it works, demonstrating early impact. It's very rare that we're going to go big bang from the start, do everything to everyone and achieve change. Actually, the best way is that we focus on one area, one group of people, we prove the impact, we learn from it, we evolve, and then we move on. And that really is how we create effective change. But again, you can link your business drivers here. So you might choose specifically a team or function that enables you to demonstrate impact in one of the business drivers that's really relevant to your team today. Or if you can't do that, you might pick your own team and say, actually, let's repurpose some existing budget, or maybe it's even low cost or no cost in terms of what we can change and what we can try but critically collect some data, collect some metrics that show you the before and after in terms that are meaningful to your stakeholders, and prove that case. Keep talking about it, sharing it, and you'll gain traction. And I love this term. It came out from Deloitte, I think, last year, around the concept that we can create change. We can create really strong overall organizational cultures by focusing on the microcultures, and that microcultures can be mighty. So again, that concept of show that improvement, show that change, or even capture what is going really well. What does it look like in terms of behaviors, habits that are helping that team achieve some great impact for people and businesses? And then let that ripple, show and share the impact, and encourage others. So we can really use micro cultures to create positive ripples and achieve broader change. So those are the 3 steps. I appreciate there's quite a lot to unpack there. And in reality, building your case for culture, or making investing in culture a no-brainer, is something that we have to do all the time, whether you're a leader of a business, of a team, whether you're in HR. This is something we have to do constantly, because culture's never done. And there's always opportunity to keep trying and improving and learning around, what works, what doesn't. And we need to gather support from people and investment in some cases along the way. So here's some other tools and support that you can access that I just wanted to signpost for you. We do have an online course called Nurturing Growth Cultures, and module 1 is all about this, building your case for culture. So it will walk you through some of these models and more, and give you practical tools to take away and apply to your own business. So how to calculate the cost of inertia, how to identify the business drivers, how to engage and influence those key stakeholders, and really build a compelling case that they can't say no to. In addition, I'm sure some of you have done this already. You can take our scorecard, our growth culture scorecard, for free, that gives you some personalized insights on where the strength of your culture is today and where some of the gaps are. Again, that can help bring an objective lens and help you target action. And if we can help further, if you want to just talk this through, if you want to access additional support, just book a call and we'd be very happy to discuss this further. And finally, I just wanted to again signpost that this is part of our broader process around how we make growth cultures a habit. And this really is step 1, around hearing how people feel, but also creating that all-important case for culture by calculating the cost, objectifying and making tangible the place that you're at today, and projecting the improvement that you can bring for the business. So that's around step 1. And of course, we can help you with the broader steps. So again, get in touch if that's something you'd like to hear more of. Coffee and Culture is a series, as I mentioned, every couple of weeks. If you want to join live, then please do. You can add the invite to your calendar. And then we also have a discussion as a group of leaders, managers across a variety of organizations to bring it to life, share experiences and ask questions. The next topic is on the 3rd of July, and it's around how we can shape culture habits that fuel growth. So getting into some more examples like that Spotify one that make it more granular, make it more specific, and help you to think about where you could start with culture change and how you can make it achievable within your team and within your organization. Thanks very much for watching back, and please do look at the other resources that are available through the Make It Human Club members site. See you soon.